Welcome to Coach's Corner, everybody, on the special edition of Coach's Corner Saturday. I'm your host, Paul Tripoli, along with my buddy, Phil Quigley.
How you doing, Paul?
Man, we got a great show for you today, man. We got a special person. 93 years young, Bill Tate, University of Illinois running back, 1952 Rose Bowl MVP, Rose Bowl Hall of Fame, brothers that played. Coach, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. I am pleased to be your guest.
Oh my gosh. We're going to talk about you and your coaching career. Okay. You coached many years at college, Illinois, and the head coach at Wake Forest. You coached the great Brian Piccolo. Of course, everybody's familiar with Brian's song. We're going to talk a lot about that, a lot about cancer as well tonight. But thanks for joining the show, Coach. I want to take us back. I don't think the apple falls far from the tree, my friend. So you grew up in Mattoon, Illinois. Talk about your mom and dad and your siblings.
Well, that's a history lesson, really. My mother and father, my father was a country school teacher, and he loved sports, but he wasn't a real good athlete. But my mother was probably the better athlete, and she was a Christian lady, and she raised 7 kids. 3 girls and 4 boys.
Wow.
And fortunately, I think we lived in a small community of 25,000, Mattoon, Illinois. Phil's familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, it kept us out of trouble. And sports was a very, very important part of our life. So we played about every sport there was, from track to football, basketball, tennis, on and on and on. And it was a very, very great experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything, having gone there. Phil is very familiar with that.
Right.
But I was moving on from high school. It was kind of a interesting recruiting, probably made a great impression on me, because I was either going to Ohio State or Illinois. I don't know if I'm getting ahead of you.
No, Coach, you're doing great. I didn't realize Ohio State was one of them.
Yeah, well, talk about getting recruited.
They wanted me badly, and I almost went there. Wes Fessler was the head coach at Ohio State at the time, and I almost committed. But during that interim, Coach Fessler left coaching and went to work for a financial firm up in Minneapolis. And as a result of that move, I changed my mind and decided to go to Illinois. And it was a good decision because Coach Elliott was a fine man, and he was a good coach. And he was one of the reasons I got into coaching, because when I left the Marine Corps, which I was in there for a couple of years, I thought I'd take my efforts to Chicago Bears. And George Hallis offered me a big contract of $7,500 with a $300 bonus. And so we had a lot of great players, Chicago Bears, and so as a result, I was a linebacker and fullback, and they asked me if I wanted to be traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And for $7,500, I didn't think it was worth getting beat up on.
Right.
So that was the decision I made to go back to Illinois, and I was going to become a dentist because I had all the coursework except a couple of sciences.
Right.
And I was very impressed with my dentist when I was growing up. And so I decided I wanted to be a dentist. After looking through a microscope for about a week or so, I decided I didn't want to look at somebody's mouth the rest of my life. So Coach Elliott invited me to come over and work with the freshman coaching team. And that started my coaching career.
Wow, let's rewind, Coach, back to your brothers. Talk about his brothers.
Coach, you had your oldest brother's name was Jim, that played
Yep.
for Purdue, right? And then you had Reg at
Yes.
Northwestern, you at Illinois, then Dick at Illinois. Talk about what you
Growing
learned
up.
from them, growing
Oh,
up, learning
man.
from your older brothers.
Those backyard brawls must have been
how
something.
many did you have?
Coach.
How many brothers?
I had 3 older brothers. And
Well,
that's-
you know what? How important they are, then, Paul. Jim was probably my role model when I was growing up. He was 4 years older than I was. He was a terrific lineman, and he graduated about the time the end of the World War II, and so he was offered a scholarship. Interesting enough, Auburn heard about him and offered him a scholarship. Isn't that
Wow.
interesting? Way back
Yeah.
in 1945, 46. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Wow.
But anyway, he ended up going to Purdue, and he had a great career at Purdue. And I never played against him; he was ahead of me. But then Jim was about 225 pounds back then. That was pretty good
That was a
size.
big
now.
man.
Yeah,
Wow.
and he about 6'1" or 6'2".
Wow.
And he had a great career there. And then my next brother, Reg, came along, and Reg played secondary and offensive end.
There you go,
He ended
Trip.
up going to Northwestern.
Right.
Wow.
He had a great career up there. I'm not so sure. I had a pretty good career. I must confess, I was very, very fortunate. And
You're being
so-
humble, Coach.
I'm sorry.
Coach,
You're being humble.
Coach, let's go to the you're inducted into the Rose Bowl Hall of Fame in 1996, but because of the 1952 Rose Bowl, when you ran for 150 yards on 20 carries.
Yeah,
And-
it was pretty. I can't. Well, I was a pretty decent athlete, but
Oh,
we had
you
a
played
running back,
everything in school.
on our squad by the name of Johnny Karras, and Johnny was a real good. He was fast. He won the 440 dash in high school as a senior at Argo High School, which is a suburb of Chicago.
Mhm.
And Johnny was a halfback, and I was a fullback, 187 pounds. And so they were trying to catch Johnny. In the meantime, they let me run free. I ran for free and gained 150 yards and didn't play the fourth quarter. But
And I believe you scored twice too, Coach.
yeah, it was a career that I never expected,
Yeah.
wasn't planning on. But I enjoyed every minute of it, obviously. And the most valuable player, I certainly wasn't expecting that. I wasn't
Right.
even thinking about that. We were thinking about Stanford. I was down 7-6 at halftime, and we ended up winning the game 40-7.
Wow.
Wow.
And it was quite a game. And interesting enough that you mentioned this, Harry Hugasian was a halfback for Stanford, and I became very good friends with Harry when he and I were with the Chicago Bears at the same time.
Whoa.
And Harry and I got together and had a reunion with Stanford graduates and Illinois graduates. You know,
Oh, man.
and we had just a great time. I would imagine Stanford must have had 30 players there with their wives. We had just about as many with our wives. It was just a great experience, and I don't think it ever been done, and it hasn't been done since, to have two competing teams having a reunion. And it was just a wonderful experience. And they Ron Genther, who was the athletic director at Illinois, was responsible probably for putting my name in the list for being
Yeah.
in the what do you want to call it? Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame, yeah, the
Yeah.
Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was responsible for getting me into that. Everything has been one of those things where there are a lot of good people, Paul, out there.
Yeah. Yep, a lot of champions in your corner, Coach.
You're sitting next to one of the real good ones too.
Oh,
man.
man. Hey, can I ask a quick question, Coach? And I know Tripp's got a lot of great questions for you. But when you came back to Illinois, as you said, you had enough time of getting hit, beat up. I didn't realize you played linebacker as well. But Talk to us about some of the players that you coached at Illinois, and we know one of them that was a great middle linebacker that ended up at the Bears by the name of Dick Butkus.
He was Dick was. I tell you a funny story. Buck McPhail, who was an All-American fullback at Oklahoma years ago, back in the early '50s, he and Billy Vessels were teammates, and Buck was a great guy and he was a good coach, but he didn't know anything about defense. So we're having a scrimmage one day, and Buck goes up behind the line of scrimmage and whispers something to Dick Butkus on how to play linebacker. He comes back to the coaches where we were standing watching the scrimmage, and Pete Elliott, our head coach, said, "Buck, don't try to coach him, just let him play." And never again did Buck McPhail ever, and no one had to coach Dick. He had such a great, he not only had a great feel for the defensive line, but he also had a partner who played defensive linebacker. His name was Don Hanson. And Don played in the pros for 10 years with the Atlanta Falcons. And Dick was so overwhelming that hardly anybody heard about Don Hanson.
Right.
But now he's a great linebacker.
Wow.
All that defensive line that we had. So those players, along with, this is another story, Jim Grabowski, who played quite a few years with the Green Bay Packers. And there's an interesting story. We'll get into that later, but the fullback that I had at Wake Forest was Brian Piccolo.
Right.
And Brian and Jim Grabowski in 1964 were competing for the most yardage gained in 1964, and Brian beat out Jim Grabowski. And so I keep kidding Jim Grabowski every time I see him at a reunion. I said, you just didn't have enough of it to beat out Brian Piccolo. He said, no, he played one more game than I did. We had a lot of laughs about it, and it was a kind of interesting move. But we had we beat Washington in the 1964 Rose Bowl, and Jim Owens was the head coach. And I was so impressed once I was fortunate enough to get selected to be the head coach at Wake Forest. I immediately called Jim Owens, and I asked him, I said, I was so impressed with your offense. The only reason we beat you in the Rose Bowl, we just had too much manpower that you just couldn't overcome.
Right.
And he used what they call the triple option. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but the triple option was you give it to the fullback, quarterback keeps it, or he pitches to a trailing running back. And as a result of that, Brian Piccolo led the nation in rushing and scoring. And only because of that offense. No one knows that. No one knew.
Wow.
Triple. But that's the reason we got the option.
Coach, Coach.
Jim Owens in Washington. And
Coach, let's talk about
Jim Owens deserves part of that credit for sharing the triple option with us.
Coach, let's talk about Brian Piccolo. You coached him. Of course, everybody's familiar with him from Brian's song, James Caan playing his character. And it was, the first movie, a lot of people. But talk about the person, Brian Piccolo. What was he like? What was his relationship with Gale Sayers? And talk about that dynamic. What kind of player, what kind of person was him? What kind of characteristics did he have as a running back and player for you?
You're asking a question that I could get kind of emotional just talking about it. I really can. He was an outstanding young man, and he didn't know what to expect. He and Tucker Frederickson, I never forget that name. He was a great player down in southern Florida someplace, and I think he chose to go to Alabama.
Auburn, went to Auburn, right?
And I think that's the way Brian came to Wake Forest. I don't think he wanted to follow Tucker. Maybe he didn't think he would play any at Alabama.
Right.
I don't know. But anyway, the first game, now you have to understand, the history behind Wake Forest, Wake had lost 20 games in a row.
Wow.
Imagine kids living with that.
Right.
And so we went up to Virginia, our first game, and we beat them by 2 touchdowns. The kids were so excited that we had to take a bus. We didn't fly.
Right.
We took a bus, and Brian led a song fest all the way down to Florida. And he was just a wonderful kid. I mean, I can't say enough good things. He stayed with me and my family while he was finishing up his degree. But he was just an outstanding man, and he was a very good teammate. George Hallis asked me about recruiting him because he ended up going with the Bears.
Right.
Right.
And I said, I coached some fullbacks before. I said, I coached one at Illinois. His name was Bill Brown. And Bill played with the Minnesota Vikings for about 10 or 12 years.
Wow.
I said, I can tell you right now, Brian will play as well as Bill Brown.
Wow.
The newspaper man asked Brian, he was also very witty.
Yeah.
Brian, if he could gain 100 yards like Gale Sayers did. Brian said, if you give me the ball 10 times, I'll get you 100 yards. So that's a story about Brian. That he was a good Christian man, and he had a wonderful wife after he left school, and I didn't particularly care for I didn't care for the kids to be married while they were playing. That was just
Right.
one of the things and now that's nothing to that anymore. But
Right.
I felt like I wanted them to concentrate on football as
Right.
much as possible. So, but that was the story. But we also, and in fact, I was going to mention his name to you because I think one of the questions you wanted to ask is there somebody that you might want to contact and confirm some of the things. And he was my quarterback, John Malkovich.
Oh, yeah.
Nick was my quarterback at Wake Forest. He was also the head coach at Wake Forest. He was the head coach at University of Illinois, head coach at Texas. He was head coach of Kansas City Chiefs. And John is still living. And I would like, if you want someone to call and get an update on some of the things that's happened to him, and even something that happened to Wake Forest, because he was living daily with the kids, as well as the integration thing. John was was one of the players when Robert Grant, who was our first black player, came into school as a freshman. So anyway, John could probably give you a lot of stories.
Wow, Coach, let's talk about that. 1964. I'm glad you brought it up. Bob Grant, one of the first. You were one of the first to recruit black players at Wake Forest. You played with black players in the 1950s. Talk about that dynamic, Coach.
Well, we had some, not a lot, but Illinois. We had Donnie Stevens was our halfback on the Rose Bowl team, the African American. We had a boy in the secondary, but we only had about 3 or 4. But there was no one even thought about integration at Illinois. It was never a factor. In fact, we had one kid that came up from Texas that played fullback, and he got homesick and went back to Texas. But we had some good players, good African American players, and Donnie was one of them. So it wasn't a major factor when I went to Wake Forest. And speaking of the player, how this came about is kind of interesting. I think it's a little bit of history, and I certainly don't want to take the credit, but I was sitting in a meeting with my coaches one day in about January 1964, and Dr. Tribble, who was the president of Wake Forest University at that time, he was an old ex-Baptist preacher, and he called me one day and wanted to talk to me. Well, I was a little worried about that because I just a young 33-year-old kid. I didn't maybe I had the rules somewhere. I didn't know. But I went over and we visited, exchanged thoughts and so forth. And he wanted to know how recruiting was going. And I said, I think it's going pretty good. He said, well, how do you feel? And I got to use this word because this is accurate on what he asked me. He said, how do you feel about recruiting Negroes?
Mhm.
And I got to tell you that because that's exactly what Dr. Tribble asked me. And I don't want to offend anybody, but that was the sentence, the question he asked me.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I have no problem with that at all.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, I played with him, I coached him. I have
Right.
no
Yeah.
I took your guts because you didn't know his answer. You didn't know his answer. Yeah.
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 And I said, the only problem I have, Dr. Tribble, is the academics are pretty strict here at Wake Forest. You have
Yeah.
to have 2 years of foreign language, and you have to have a minimum 900 on the college board. Well, that may not sound like much,
No.
but 2 years of foreign language. I know I've never had 2 years of foreign language.
That's it. Yeah. Hey,
Anyway,
Oh.
the irony of this whole thing,
Uh-huh.
it was kind of amusing, his response to that. He said, Coach, you recruit him, I'll get him in, and I'll coach him.
Coach, stay right there. This is going to be
You know
close to Paul. This is going to be
Yeah,
close to
okay.
Paul because you know who Paul played for in college. But you told me a great story when you were up for Coach of the Year. Talk about the two coaches that you sat between.
Oh,
And
In 1964.
with
64.
Yeah, we were up in New York at the I can't think of the name of the hotel. It was a major hotel because they had all the coaches from around the United States there, head coaches, assistant coaches, and General Eisenhower was the speaker.
Wow.
And so we and of course I enjoyed my conversation with
Mhm.
Bear Bryant and Bob Devaney because those are two legends.
Yeah. What Coach Bryant say to you?
Oh, he asked me how I was going, kid. And I said, well, I said, I'm growing up a lot just being between you and your buddy here, Bob Devaney. I think they were drinking buddies too, but they were both outstanding.
Yeah.
They were both outstanding, and
Mhm.
their kids all respected them.
Mhm.
And I learned a lot about how to treat other people because they knew how to treat other people when they were talking to them.
Right.
And they never talked down to me, even though they could have, and I wouldn't have been offended
Right.
because they made me feel right at home.
Yeah.
And, so at halftime of the meeting, I went down the lobby. As I told you, it's kind of an amusing story. You have to know a little bit about history, but I saw General MacArthur sitting over in the lobby chair reading the paper, and he spoke at our meeting, at a coaches meeting, and he told a story about himself. He said, my wife and I've been living here at the hotel for quite a few years since I retired from the military. And he said, I always go down the lobby and I'm reading the paper about the current events. And this lady came up to me and she was making all over me. And she said, oh, I can hardly wait to get back to Kentucky and visit all my friends and tell them that I met you. And can I have your autograph, Mr. Truman? Well, you know that he and MacArthur and Truman did not get along.
Uh-huh.
He's one of the few guys to keep the president waiting for a meeting.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, that Coach Bryant was like that. He could talk to a janitor just as well as he talks to the president of the United States. I mean, he didn't differentiate those people. You bring up the dynamic of the black player. I think it was 1965 when Brian and Gale Sayers were roommates, and that had never been done before, I guess, in the NFL.
It never had, and Brian was very, very, very kind and respectful Gale Sayers, and of course, he's from this area. He was born
That's
here.
right.
Right.
Yeah, in Omaha, and he ended up going to Kansas University, and they became good friends, and they both respected each other. And I had some frequent visits with Brian while he was with the Bears. And one of my last visits, I tend to get a little emotional about it.
Right.
But he was on his way driving to New York to get this cancer treatment that he had. And I said, "How you doing?" He said, "Coach, I'm gonna whip it." Well, he didn't. And interesting enough, I became very good friends with a cancer doctor here in Omaha, and they still haven't found a cure for the cancer that Brian had. And it's a shame. It's too bad, but that was one of the last times I spoke to Brian.
Coach, my heart goes out to, I just found out yesterday my brother has cancer. My sister-in-law has it. My mom died at 52 years old of cancer. So cancer is a big thing in my family, and yours as well.
And Coach, you knew my dad, who also was a basketball player, and he passed from cancer. And I don't know, but Coach, we do understand.
Yeah, it's a lot of strides are prayers going out to all those people with cancer, including my brother who has surgery tomorrow. Coach, man, what a career you had. Rose Bowl MVP, man. What a career.
Thank you,
coaching. Hey, maybe Coach, you promised to maybe do a part 2 for us soon.
Well, I'll try if I don't run out of material.
That's one thing you're not going to run out of material.
Let me tell you, I thought I traveled a lot.
Up a little bit.
I said, Coach, I was telling Trip.
In there with you and Phil quickly, though.
Did we lose the signal, Coach?
And I get to know you, Paul. Reading about your background, I'm real impressed. I didn't know anything about podcasts before. And
thanks, Coach.
Appreciate you inviting me on.
Yeah, I appreciate you having you on. Yeah, Quig and I appreciate you, Coach, so much. Thank you, wife Joanne, too. Thank her for us.
Thank you very much,
Coach. I love you and Joanne. I'll be talking to you guys soon.
Okay, blessings to both of you.
Okay, Coach. Thanks. Peace, blessings. God bless you. Wow.
Huh?
He was something. The 52 Rose Bowl MVP. We're definitely gonna do a part 2 with him.
Well, and you think about it from coaching Dick Butkus, and then to the emotions of coaching Brian Piccolo and the things and how close. Well, Trip, I know we might not have much longer here, but you and I have played sports, played ball. What was it like? I just want the viewers, and they watch your show and love it. What was it like with you and Coach Bryant? I mean, and also too, you played for a legendary high school coach, but you've probably felt the same way like they did with.
I think I've told this on my show, and I think it was only a couple of times in the 13 years I've been doing my show, and maybe it's a good time to tell you now with all the emotions going on.
Right.
But yeah, Coach Bryant transformed my life. I was a walk-on from upstate New York, and I didn't dress for 2.5 years, and I was at home working in a freezer at night for Cisco Foods. And I got a call from Coach Donahue, and he said, Paul, you're going to have to move out of Bryant Hall. We have a lot of scholarship freshmen coming in. So I thought, wow, that's the end of me.
Did you think, like, what did I do?
Well, yeah, I wasn't a saint. No, I could have done a lot of things that I should have been kicked off for, right? Yeah. So I go into his office, and the first day of practice, I was just going to go through the motions because I got on the off campus. I was out of the dorm. I thought I got kicked out for being me. So the manager taps me on the shoulder after the first day of practice, 1982, and I think 81, 82. And I go up to Coach Brian and knock on his door, and everybody knows about the couch, the soft couch in there. Yeah. And Coach Brian says 3 sentences to me, Quig, and he blows me away with every one of them. Transformed my life, actually. He said, Paul, did you find a place to stay? And I was kind of taken aback, like, Oh yes, sir. I've got an off-campus apartment. I'm fine.
But for him to think about
that,
Yeah.
and and so the second sentence he
Right.
says, "I hope this doesn't affect the way you play on the field."
And obviously
and
it
was.
did.
And
But I mean, it
was.
affects you in a positive
That
way.
first
probably.
practice, it
Yeah.
probably did, and so he knew that
Yeah.
my psychological mind was not. That's how much of a master psychologist Coach Bear Bryant was, folks. So the third sentence, sentence, what's a kid to say when he says, "Hope it doesn't affect the way you play on the field," even though it was. I said, "No, sir, it's not going to affect the way I play." And he looked at me quick, and he looked right in my eyes and said, "I didn't think it would." And I went, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I went, wait a minute. This guy, I've never even played it down for this man. And he notices me out there and he cares enough about me and knows my psyche probably better than I did.
The confidence.
I juiced up. I juiced up. I took steroids. But I was so juiced. I went out and I was motivated, and the rest was history. I made second string. My name was on the travel list to go to Georgia Tech actually for the first game in Atlanta. Called up my brothers, my friends, and my parents and coaches, and told them I finally made the team. Well, I get there in the sidelines, and I'm just happy to be there, right? Soaking in college football, and my buddy's nudging me. Trip, Coach Bryant's calling you. And I said, no way.
He's calling you to come in the game?
Yeah, he called me Tripodi for the first couple of years.
Do you know where your helmet was? No, I just kidding.
No, you always have my helmet on.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, Larry, thank you for always having my helmet on the sidelines. So I ran up to him. He said, get in for Stan Gay. I said, now? Get in, guys. So that was it. The rest was history. My knees were shaking after the first way, but that's what Coach Bryant wants. He understood you. He cared about you. He had concern for you. He had confidence in me, saying that to me.
And you take it through life too, and through your coaching.
And I passed it on to hopefully all the kids that I coached, and the lessons that I learned from him, I passed on. So it's a ripple effect that goes on for generations and generations from people like him. He learned from Frank Thomas. Frank Thomas learned from Newt Rockne. Yes,
and these are winners.
That's how it moves down. That's how the ripple effect moves down. To be connected to all the way back to Rocky. Thanks for coming on.
Man, I appreciate it, Trip. Hey, we got to have a follow-up with Coach Tate.
Yeah, we're gonna have part 2 with Coach Tate. So everybody, thanks for watching the show. Stay tuned for these great messages. Without these sponsors, this just wouldn't be possible. If you like the podcast, hey, like and share it. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just search Paul Tripoli Coach's Corner. Have a great sports weekend, everybody. So long. See you later.
There's a reason why Hill Kelly in Pensacola is the #1 selling Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram dealer between Jacksonville and New Orleans. While other dealers have taken advantage of a competitive market with higher prices, Hill Kelly has discounted prices to the lowest of the year. And Hill Kelly in Pensacola will surprise you with excessive charges beyond the selling price. Come see why people from Milton, Pace, Foley, Bay Minette, Daphne, Gulf Shores, Mobile, and beyond are driving to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to buy their next new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram. At Hill Kelly, the bottom line price and your satisfaction are what really matter. So before you sign, check the bottom line and make the trip to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to see what true local ownership can do for you. At Hill Kelly Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Highway 29 in Car City, Pensacola. Or shop online 24/7 at hillkellydodge.com. When it comes to bottom line pricing, nobody beats a Hill Kelly deal. Nobody.
That's you trying to fix the plumbing yourself to save a few bucks. Doing things yourself doesn't always end well. The same goes for insurance. That's why Auto Owners works with local independent agents who tailor coverage to meet your needs and offer discounts for life, home, car, and business insurance. Because sometimes you need a professional to get the job done right. That's simple human sense.
Are you riding around in a filthy vehicle? Dirty car no more. Visit Ronnie's Car Wash today to get it shining in no time. They have 3 convenient locations with another coming soon. The unlimited monthly wash packages start as low as $14.95 per month with free vacuums, multi-purpose spray and towels. Visit them in Gulf Breeze, Navarre, Fort Walton, and soon Crestview. Don't wait, wash today. Be sure to see Ronnie's Car Wash on Facebook to see the latest specials and discounts. You'll be riding and shining in no time.
Okay.
Yeah, a friend of mine plays football for Wally Butt.
Yeah, sure.
So,
Hey, Bill, some game, huh?
I haven't really noticed, Paul.
What? The biggest game of the year?
I've been looking over my insurance. Talk about problems I'm trying to figure out.
Well, do what I did. Call the Seiler Agency. They showed me what I needed and what I didn't. They even saved me money. Now, instead of worrying about my insurance, I can worry about the big...
Barnes Heating and Air is a proud sponsor of Alabama football, serving the entire Pensacola community for over 50 years. Barnes Heating and Air is passionate about providing customers with world-class air conditioning and heating repairs, sales, and installation. Barnes Heating and Air is family-owned, insured, and committed to quality. For a free estimate, call 478-0141. Barnes Heating and Air is #1 in customer service with service calls 7 days a week. Call Barnes Heating and Air, 478-0141, and roll Tide.
Possibly.